Hello, I'm Luke and I'm in software and I want to help people get in software, so that's why I'm making this video. I want to talk about when you get stuck in your software training. So you are an aspiring developer, you're going through a boot camp or self-taught or a CS degree and you haven't started working in software yet. Or you're new to software, you're in your first role, let's say, and you get stuck on something. How do you get unstuck? So assuming you haven't started your first role, let me talk about that. My experience when I went through software, it's all very new. You get stuck a lot, right? So you're working on something in your training, like a project or a algorithm problem, a code challenge, and you've tried some things and they're not working, or you think you're on the right track and you just get stuck somewhere, and that happens constantly when you're first starting out, right? Especially before you've started that first role. So what are the things you can do? Read the docs is one, and you probably have already done some of that. Stack Overflow is another, and you've probably done some of that. Reaching out to people on communities is another one. So Slack channels, Discords, maybe Reddit, I don't know. So you reach out to the developer community and ask somebody for help, or maybe you make your own Stack Overflow post instead of reaching out to people. Stack Overflow being kind of that takes a while to get responses. But so those are approaches. And then there's reaching out to people in your network, right? So when I was going through my software training, I was fortunate to have, I think 3 people I knew who were already in software. And I just knew those people kind of randomly through, regular life connections, if you will. So I reached out to those people as well. So, I would text them or give them a call, or when I saw them, hey, I've got this thing that I'm stuck on, can we schedule some time and I can show you what I'm struggling with, and then maybe you give me a direction to head, or if you're able to get me unstuck, that even better. And so I jumped on calls with those people probably 5 or 6 times between the 3 of them, and they were very gracious and gave me their time. And I will say I don't think that ever helped me get unstuck. It was encouraging, it helped me think of different things, but generally those sorts of interactions didn't result in me getting unstuck. The boot camp I went through was all online, self-paced, self-taught, and so there was no one to reach out to. There was no community like Slack channel or Discord channel where you could go to ask questions. There were no mentors or staff to ask. It was a startup, and they just didn't have that available. But they were in my city, and so I looked up their address and went there, and that was not an option. That wasn't something that they ever said you could do, but I did. And they did have 2 developers who were at their disposal. They weren't supposed to be for helping students, but I went there and got help from those 2 developers. And I think because I was in their office, they wound up helping me. And so I think I did that twice, where I showed up at the door and said hey, I have this problem, this thing I'm stuck on, and I need help. And so that got me unstuck both times I went there. I think other thing you can do, and it's, kind of the least preferred, but it is an option to get you unstuck, is to work around it. And I think that this is, some would call it bad advice, but if you can't figure something out, if you can skirt around it, then that gets you unstuck. And let me talk about what I mean. So I can think of 2 examples where I did this, and it got me past the thing I was stuck on. So Free Code Camp was the majority of my curriculum going through my boot camp, right? So that was like 90% of it. They said, like, here, do these challenges on Free Code Camp, and then they had some other content that they'd curated together. Anyway, so Free Code Camp has like unit tests. It runs against your code that you enter in the coding environment, right? So you enter code, and then you click run, and then it runs a handful of unit tests. Well, it only runs like 6 unit tests, something like that. And so what I did this probably multiple times. I would write my code, try to make a working solution that would work 100% of the time for any inputs, right? Well, when I got stuck, one thing you can do is write like if statements, and wrote like an if it would work for most things, but then not some. So I'd write an if statement that said, and point back to the value, because you can see the unit test and like what the parameter is going to be. If the value is this, do this, and then that would fix it. So not a great solution, not good code at all, but it got me past what I was stuck on. So that's one way. And then another is just to here's the second example of me doing that. We were supposed to do a React project, and I watched the 18-hour video that they had on React, and that was pretty much all they had to introduce you to React, and I did not get it. It was not clicking. I had no idea where to start. And so and when it came time to do the React project, I did it in JavaScript, and then I put some React in there, and the whole thing was still in JavaScript, and I think I changed the value of the header using React. Not a React project, but I did the project, and I included some React, and then I moved on. And I would say in today's market, because it's so competitive, if you can't figure out React, then it was easier to get a job in 2016 in software, and so it worked for me. I would say if you have trouble figuring out React in today's marketplace, it's going to be tough to find a job. But I think that those 2 examples kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about when I say skirt around an issue to get unstuck. And I think I'm going to get some hate for sharing both of these stories. But yeah, like at the end of the day, you're new to software. If you can't figure it out, you need to get unstuck somehow. Being able to figure out everything on your own is not really like that. Expectation is not reasonable for someone who's just starting. Like sometimes you need help. You don't have the tools, the skills at that experience level to get past every roadblock you come on. That's how I feel about it, and maybe some people would disagree with me, but I think that that's the reality. So if you've started your first role, then after you've spent a reasonable amount of time trying to work around your issue, then it's time to go ask somebody for help, another developer. And when you're working somewhere, you have those resources available to you, and you just go ask them and they help you, and you're unstuck, and that's great. You have to be careful about, like, there's a very happy medium there, right? It's a balance, and you have to find the right one. because you can be the person who is known for never figuring out their own issues and always getting other people to do your work. That is something that can happen. And then on the other hand, you can waste days trying to figure something out that you could get help with and then move on. So you really have to find the balance, and that is subjective, and you just kind of got to follow your gut feeling on it. And I would say a couple hours, and then it's time to reach out. It is my guiding principle. And then I think this has been said a million times before, but just stepping away from it and coming back can sometimes help you get unstuck, and that's a very real thing. I hope that was kind of helpful.